Hey, Bill.
How you doing?
So far,
You're always the first one in.
I do a lot of Zoom meetings. I always want to get there 5 minutes early.
Yeah, I'm adjusting my screen, my volume, all of those things. And I end up when I can edit the recording so all of this stuff vanishes. How you been?
Busy.
Oh. Hang on, I gotta see there says 2 people in the waiting room.
Okay.
I'm gonna admit them all.
Hopefully they're not giving birth.
Okay, it looks like Jim, probably not Hannock, because he said he wouldn't be. Jim Lozer and Frank Marfia. Oh, Frank Unger. There he goes.
Hey, Rick. You hear us, Frank? Okay.
And let's see, Frank, have you turned on your mic?
It doesn't look muted.
Okay, Paul Banner is coming in. Should be joining us in just a minute.
Hey, Paul.
Hi there.
My list showed about 12 people. I don't know if they're all going to show up. Chris Mulkey, admit, we haven't seen Chris in a while. There's Chris Mulkey.
Hello, kids. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Hey, Dick.
How you doing, Chris?
Hey, Chris. Hi, Dick.
Dick, see the rocking chair behind me? I just finished stripping and painting that one.
Oh.
Yeah. I should be sitting in it tonight. You look very comfortable.
I love a rocking chair.
Okay. Dick Gallant is coming on board.
Hey, Dick.
We see you. Let's see who else is up there. I thought I had set this up so that people could admit themselves as soon as they came online, but apparently my settings weren't right. Try to get myself a little. Okay. I'm hoping to hear from Bill Gabard, Dave Hooper, Frank Marfia, Mike Murphy, Stas, Al, Wamhoff.
Yeah.
Frank Unger.
Frank. Oh, your mic, he hasn't turned his sound on.
Frank hasn't?
I'm going to see if I can do it from here. Oh, there it is. Wait a second. Dick Gallant. Now I show your mic as being off.
Yeah, he's muted. Dick's muted. But Frank is not.
Frank, can you hear us okay? Frank Unger?
Maybe the sound level on his computer's down too.
Oh, he's got his picture though.
I can hear him buzzing something over there.
I've got an idea.
Yeah.
It's always dangerous before, Chris.
Haven't seen you in a long time, Dick.
No. Life sort of rushed by all of us. Within a few months.
Oh. Frank, can you see that? Oh, it's going to be backwards, isn't
it? That's right.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Frank, can you hear me?
This sounds like a Verizon commercial. It's funny, Chris, that you did that because I was going to do the same thing last time or whenever we.
Okay. Now here's a challenge. Here's a challenge.
Okay.
Russ Hogan, Bill, I just sent you a text, okay?
Oh, where did you send it?
I'm not sure. I sent it to your phone number. I'm not sure how to sign in with my name because I'm using my phone.
Is this work? Let's see. How do I do that? How do I do this? Let's see. We'll get closer.
Higher.
Rank, no here.
You got it backwards.
I put it backwards.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
All right, that is a challenge. Back to your question about how to set up your name. At least I thought that when you were ready to launch, that there was a spot in there for you to enter your name. At least there was on mine. But maybe
on your phone.
No, on the screen.
On the screen.
Well, looks like you're using your an iPhone, so maybe you didn't have that option in there.
I don't think I did.
No.
Sorry.
Okay, Stas is.
Who are you?
Russ Hogan.
Oh my God. Judas.
Who said that?
Dick Host.
Hey, Dick Host. There you are.
You sit here and I'll grab.
Hey, Albert.
I have an extension cord in there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Hello. Mike Murphy and Bill Gabard are joining us.
Okay. Yeah.
And Pete is coming online.
Okay. And then.
All right, that's off.
Start video.
Start video one.
Where it's in the red line is here. That's when you get.
There's a Jim up here, but I can't see who that is. Tom Dalton is joining us.
There, good. Well, you started it twice. You're on.
Okay, Bill, I see you. That's Mike Murphy. Can you see me?
Yep.
Good.
You see
Okay.
Dick and
There we got something right. Okay.
Hi, Dick.
Hello.
okay.
Pete.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Pete.
Hang on for just a second. There's a Jim, and that could be Hammond. I don't know. That I don't see any indication that that he's muted or his video is turned off, but we don't see him. Can you hear us, Jim?
I can hear you.
Hammond.
Okay. Somehow we can't see you. At least I can't.
Okay.
Well, let me fiddle with my camera.
To make it longer, harder.
Okay, and with Tom Dalton, it looks like your camera is turned off as well.
Jim.
You should be good. Must have turned you off because you were on.
I'm right there with you.
Okay, bye.
You can shut the, yeah. Be quieter.
Okay, we see Stas. We still don't see Tom Dalton. And I don't see any microphone for him.
Tom is the tech man. He knows everything about this. He needs a 7-year-old grandchild there.
I wondered, can you can mute and turn off your camera so nobody can see you, but you can see everybody else? Is that? I guess that looks like that's possible. Looks like that's happening.
That's backwards, Chris. We can't read that.
I wrote it backwards so he can see it frontwards. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
Me. There you go. He's got on.
Who's the phone number? Is that Hank?
My phone number up there, Pete, 2400573.
Yeah.
That's the one? Yeah.
Okay.
Russ.
Oh, Russ. Okay, that's
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Hank emailed that he couldn't be here.
Oh,
Chicken.
yeah.
He doesn't want to hear talk about the Mikado anymore.
Okay.
There's Tom. Hi, Tom. Smile, Tom. Smile.
I don't know why I'm getting all of these in the waiting rooms at, oh, it's Mike Mulkey. It's Mike Mulkey.
Mike Mulkey. Oh, no.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike.
Hello.
You guys are brothers, right?
Yeah, we used to be. Hey, Bill. Paul Banner, long time no see.
Yes, indeed.
Mike Murphy, interesting, real cool. Pete Garthe.
Hi, Mike.
I see Pete on the golf course.
With two Mulcahy's, we're not going to get a word in tonight, you guys.
Hey, whoever started this has got a big mute button there, you know.
Yeah, I can handle anybody who steps out of line. Just remember.
Is Tom Dalton talking?
No, not yet.
Hey, how are you, man?
Not bad. Yourself, Pete?
Good.
Good.
Are we starting out with a glass of wine or with a prayer?
Hang on, I'm still trying to get that our Jim guy, but it looks like he signed out and is signing back in.
There's Jim Hammond, if there ever was one.
Okay, now we got you. Now we got you. Okay, I show 14 of us all. Oh, Jim Lozer is coming in. He should be joining us momentarily. Okay, Jim, we can see you now. I think we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
And hang on, let me just. Okay, my original plan was, we had a lot of interesting ideas about things that we could talk about in these sessions. And, there was a little back and forth among people about whether or not there was too much to accomplish in a setting or whether this is the setting to do it in. And so I thought that what we could do is, to help all of us who are used to sitting in the back seat, back row, that we could start in reverse alpha order and just say, a quick update on what's going on, what your suggestions of things that we could talk about tonight. And then we just kind of throw it open for discussion on, based on what people think. So why don't I start? For those of you who don't know me, and I think probably Mike Mulkey is the one, I was in the graduating class of 1966. And so I've been putting these things together sort of as best we can. A quick note in here. I have set these things up to last 3 hours. So, if we have to go over, that's fine. My experience with Zoom has been that they don't really cut you off. It might be different. This is a paid account, so it's not a free account. The other thing to be aware of is I'm recording this, and because of disk storage space on Zoom, what I have been doing is going online and deleting a couple of the past month's sessions. So right now, the session for February 1 is still available online, but if you try to find some of the older ones that were referred to in messages, you won't be able to find those anymore. Okay, just a couple of, just one other thing. I was kind of interesting that somehow, I forget who it was that sent us along that the autographed copy of the Mikado. And I didn't, for one thing, it sort of confirmed what we had heard several months ago, that Frank Marfia was in fact in there somewhere. But he was identified in the printed program by some other name, Frank Marcino or something like that. So he apparently was there. I guess he's listed in the thing as under makeup. And I didn't realize that Bill Gebhard was in the cast somewhere. Bill, did we discuss that before?
Right, Frank and I both agreed that we were in it. We were part of the school boys that joined the three main school boys.
Oh, okay.
And we were in it until our voices started to change. And but yes, we Frank and I took a lot of abuse saying that we weren't in it. But yes, we actually were.
Okay.
Bill,
yes.
Those were two little boys who were in the seminary.
We're in the seminary somewhere. Okay. I think that really, I know. I don't have any particular agenda to put forward about things that we should discuss. I kind of like to leave it up to others to come forward and figure out what it is that we want to talk about in there. So with that, I'll go in reverse order. I show Frank Unger second to the last in alphabetical order. So Frank, do you want to say anything?
Well, you and I were always last in order, last month was the first time I attended one of these, so I'm just kind of getting a feel for it. So until I get a little more comfortable with it, I'm going to pass as far as a suggestion goes.
Okay. Moving up the list to Stas.
There's just a couple things I wanted to say before. Not related anything to the seminary, but I always had suspicions, and then my plumber friend confirmed, and then I listened to a talk show for home improvements and stuff like this. And many of us have the new toilets, the low flush toilets, 1.2, 1.6 water flush through. And that's good, and that's good. And some of the newer ones definitely have 3-inch throats and stuff. That's very good. But one of my questions was, what happens after it leaves the toilet? Like I said, a plumbing friend of mine, plus this home improvement talk show that's on Detroit, they recommend to just flush the toilet without any paper products, any products at all, 10 to 12 times a day. Because yes, it is going through the toilet, but not necessarily reaching the street sewer system. And so people have been getting, having to get it reamed out, not the toilet, but the line going from the toilet to the street. And that's a little bit expensive sometimes. So like I said, they recommended just going by, flushing 10, 12 times a day. If we don't use paper products, probably don't have to worry about that as much. But that's probably what we should kind of be doing, or else have to pay somebody every so often to clean out the sewers. In regards to topics, it doesn't matter. I'm good on all those. Like I mentioned the very first time, I still go to church. Still say the rosary almost every day, usually a novena too. And I've kind of found that, not that I've been spared of things, but it isn't as bad as it could have been, type of thing. And one good example that I've given time and time again to friends and that is my daughter went to Michigan State. Summertime, she was working at a drive-in roller skate type of thing for, you know, hamburgers and root beer and stuff like that. Came home one Wednesday or Tuesday and said, I've got to go. She had class in Southfield. We are all on the other side of Detroit, Lake St. Clair. And she had to take a class there. And she said, Dad, can I take your car because it's hot? And it was. So I got all my sailing gear out of the car, gave her the car. She took off. I went to get in an hour later and she had a flat tire. So different things like that over the years that, like I said, I haven't been spared, but somebody's looking out for me once in a while. So I don't know if it's saying a rosary and all that other stuff, but it's, like Jim Lozer mentioned before, it's kind of a calming effect of being part of maybe the old school of saying those prayers and things like that. So as I mentioned, any topic is good with me. So I pass.
Okay, up to Mike Murphy.
Okay, well, that's kind of hard to follow, Stas. Congratulations there. I don't know, what do you want me to talk about?
I guess the thought was that, did you have any particular reaction or any particular topics that you thought were appropriate in here or are, you know, appropriate for this forum? There was, I guess, some little discussion back and forth whether we needed, for example, there was something in there, somebody brought, I think it was maybe Chris Mulkey, whether somebody brought up whether that a particular topic that was suggested was so lengthy that it might take several sessions rather than trying to cover everything all in one session. That was kind of where I was going with getting a sense of the group about how we want to proceed with questions in the future, and any particular topics that you thought we should or conversely shouldn't be bringing up. I'm just open to just about anything. If somebody has some topics that they want to discuss, that's fine. I don't want to dominate saying that this is what we're going to talk about this particular session or future sessions. One thing that I did forget to mention was the last session on February 1st, I sent a general notice out to all of the 150 people on the alumni database asking, letting them know. And I know that we picked up a couple of people that hadn't been in previous sessions. And I guess the general, fortunately, in that session, we were able to keep the attendance down to about 20, which seems to be a number that we can manage. And so I guess my question is, do we want to, in the future, extend a broad invitation to all of the alumni as opposed to our initially we were doing it for the class of 66, and then we got a couple other people who thought they wanted to join, so on. So I guess that's my question in general for people to think about. I'm up for anything. It doesn't take me any additional work to invite more people and keep track of more people. So maybe in your discussion with the rest of you guys, or is that the direction we want to go in?
Okay, well, from my standpoint here, this is very comfortable here. I'm not saying we shouldn't close it to anybody else. I'm not really sure what the capacity of the electronics is here. I don't know. I think it's fairly comfortable right now. if we want to divide into a group, and if anybody has the electronic chops in order to take the leadership on it, maybe we could talk about that.
Yeah, we can handle up to 100 people in, according to our account. It's more a matter of, my experience has been that if you get beyond like 20, 25, then kind of getting it so set up so that people can participate gets a little cumbersome. But anyway, that was my reaction there.
Mm-hmm. As we have it right now, it's good and it's comfortable. Everything seems to be working well. I just don't know the possibilities of the electronics here. So I'm willing to let it ride a little bit and find out as other guys join us how it's working. And then when we have to make a decision at the right time, we'll know what we need to do.
All right, how about if we move up alphabetically, reverse order? I think Mike Mulcahy is next on the list.
Hey, I just think this is phenomenal to be able to get together with you guys. The seminary days were a big deal in my life. And I don't know if, yeah, I'll jump in just for a split second on this. After I left the seminary, I left the church for about 13 years and I came back, and I am so glad that I am back. But I get on a bunch of other Zoom meetings, especially now with this Corona / Wuhan virus running around. And a lot of those meetings are like Bible study meetings. And I am so happy to be conversing with people that have got my faith. Now, with regard to the class of 66, it dawned on me here that you guys are talking about high school plus 2 years of college,
Correct.
66. And I'm
Correct.
class of 66 if you just stop at high school. So what I will do, I'll just tell you this right now. If I'd love to join back in, but I'm going to pretend like I'm a bishop when he turns 75. You're out when you're 75. You automatically submit your resignation. If this thing gets out of hand and you start getting like 25 guys on here, I won't be the 26th. I will bail. So anyhow, but it's nice to see your faces. It is fun to have the recollection of those days with Monsignor Moran running around, Monsignor Shaw, Monsignor Martin, Father Bissett, and then all of my classmates as well. So I didn't know that this was just going to be your class here. So feel free to send me a strong or a weak signal. I'll be looking for it, and I'll either not show up next time or I will. So
yeah, it started out with the graduating class of 66, and then we picked up the 65ers, and and so it kind of grew from that. Yeah. So,
but when you mentioned the Mikado, all I could think of was Father Jim, but he's a priest now, and he's in hurting shape right now too. Father
Jim Gardner.
Gardner, yeah. And what how much of the musical load he carried, and of course Father Rose playing the piano. So anyway, it's good to see you all, and I hope you're all healthy and happy, and God is smiling on you.
All right, let's go up to Chris Mulkey.
Hi guys, how are you? I've got a bit of a heavier topic here. I've always pondered and felt it was heartbreaking that 88 guys came in 1960 and so few were ordained. And so that's kind of the background to a couple questions I'd love to hear people come out with. I'll start with my whining. I don't recall ever in the 4 years I was there being told, hey, you're doing great. Hey, we're glad to have you in the seminary. Hey, you'll make a good priest. Or you'd make a good priest if you just fix this and this and this. We think you can do it. Or you're a schmuck, but you know, that's okay. It'll probably get beaten out of you over time. But the only personal attention, I remember Shaw pulled me out of line freshman year after seeing me in the junior dorm, that freshman dorm there, you know. I thought, oh, I'm remember, I got 11 brothers and sisters after me, and they all hogged my mother's attention. But anyway, he pulled me aside, and I thought I was going to get some kind of pep talk. He says, the fly on your pajamas wasn't fully clipped together. Are you essentially saying, are you a queer? Anyway, I never saw any homosexual behavior in the 4 years I was there, but I always wondered why the priests were so standoffish. I was always a hugger with my brothers and sisters and an encourager. And since I've been in business with my brother and elsewhere, and that's kind of a key rule of business, isn't it? To encourage your employees, compliment them when they do well, try to help them when they screw up. But there was so little of that, that in my mind, that was the primary reason so many left. They weren't getting mentored. Now I'm remembering now, do you remember tactus? Remember that word? Anybody? Tactus? That came out of the past, but it was a no touchy rule. It was kind of like with a grand silence. So I've got to try to make some compensation for the cultural background of the priests who were there. They were friendly up to a point, but they never put their arm around me and said, hey, you're doing great. Or why did you screw up so bad doing that? Why, that was so stupid. Why don't you learn? And so it was kind of a cold place in that sense. And I feel that the faculty just let these 88 guys melt away. Anybody want to throw their 2 cents in?
Well, I think basically when I read the book, they didn't teach you much about being a priest or priestly formation or anything. You were basically in a boarding school and trying to preserve the initial instincts about what you might have wanted to do in life, to be a priest. And I think to a certain extent that's what the place was for. And so you had a little bit of standoffishness there. They were trying to keep the vocational instinct going there. And it turned out to be basically a boarding school. And so it just never took off. You were just there, you know, and sometimes quite a bit empty in a way. And so you're right. And under an atmosphere like that, people will drift away because they're not nurtured along that line. In my class, Dick and I were the last ones to leave. That's out of 66 or 68. So the system just didn't function.
Chris?
Yeah.
I'd like to respond. It's interesting you bring that up because a few years back, I was quite fortunate to attend a seminar in Harvard. This is for educational management. And they were talking about students and identifying with schools. They had done national studies, and they hit on that very issue that you talked about. And the other thing that was interesting is that you're talking about business, because it was built into a lot of things that dealt with business. And it was like, if you were, as an example, if you were involved, you know, you were kind of running in the quad somewhere in an area, and a professor walked up and said, "Hey, Chris, you got an A in your Latin test today. Way to go." And the idea is that, I think what you're saying is that you really weren't able to identify with anything. You were there. Was anybody really paying attention to you? And the one of the examples they gave was kind of interesting. It was he talked about a young lady who was from the UP, who just, you know, blew out the SATs, and she gets to Harvard, and she's having a terrible time, and that shouldn't happen. Not somebody as bright and talented as this. And they talked to a counselor, and a counselor told her, you know, like, was talking about this, you know, like, how do you get your grades better and that? And she asked, well, do you, you know, how do you identify with the school? And it said, how about, do you play in the band? You know, in that, something like that. So, no, I don't have a musical, you know, I don't play a musical instrument. I said, well, why don't you, you know, like, is there something where you can identify with a club or something? Think about the Mikado, by the way, as I'm going along here. But anyways, what happened is she you know, saw her about 3 months later or so, and she's taken off and everything, and then you know, asked her how she, you know, what's going on in that. She said she did try out for the band, but she was one of the people that you know, waved the flags. And what happened is that she became the great, you know, she began to meet people that were her peers, and they, you know, the camaraderie that that she had was evident, and it just began once she had an identity with something. And you're talking about in a vocation, a lot of things you're talking about, but it just you know, she just took off because of that. And I've often wondered a lot of the same things you said. For instance, one of the things, one day I was walking along and I'm thinking, you know, okay, I put 7 years of my life in, you know, and left, but no one said thank you for your time. Wouldn't you think that's strange? If you get up in a pulpit every day and say you should be thankful to other people, and it seemed like it wasn't. You know, I always think about that. It's not a gripe, but it's just kind of strange that you it was kind of like you were a monk that was you know, your interaction with women or other people and situations where people weren't white, and how in heaven's name in your job is going to be to interact with people in that very issue that you're talking about. Anyways, so I just share that with you, but I've often thought the same thing. So thanks for listening.
So you didn't encounter a mentor at all in your philosophy level, huh?
No, they had what was called a con, which was like a confessor, but not really. Yeah. It was a good experience. I'm glad I had it. Frank was with me there. But no, I never really encountered anybody that was a mentor that way.
Sad.
Yeah.
Hey, why don't we let Jim Lozer, according to my list, jump in here. He's next going up the list alphabetically. Jim.
Yeah, I just wanted, I like the idea of checking in, seeing how everybody's doing, who's ever on the Zoom. I just wanted to share with you guys, I don't know how many of you have gotten your COVID vaccine yet, but I was on like 4 or 5 lists, and I finally got my first vaccine at Myers on Alpine. And it was weird because when I was waiting in line, I was never so excited to get a shot to get the COVID. And I'm thinking, why am I so excited to get this? And I realize it's because I feel like I'm going to be safer. I'm going to have more freedom. I start planning. My wife and I are planning a vacation now. We're going to go to Montana in June. I mean, it's just, it's a more of a relief, I think, that if I do get the COVID, hopefully I won't die from it. But yeah, it was really kind of funny. I'm thinking, man, I'm going to get my shot. All right, I'm finally going to get it. But yeah, I think checking in is a good thing for to start with. Everybody check in a little bit till kind of see how they're coping with the COVID. The topic that Chris brought up, though, I tend to feel that initially, for me, I was angry when I left the seminary. And I think part of the reason that I was angry was because I was afraid to take the next step, whatever it was going to be, go to Aquinas, whatever. So I think a lot of my anger has subsided, but I too felt that I missed any spiritual kind of guidance. You call it a mentor, Chris, but I think there was nothing there to really help us develop spiritually. But what I have been grateful for is the fact that they really taught us self-discipline. I mean, I think if we look at all of us here and what we've done with our lives, that self-discipline that they did instill in us big time has helped us. And I think that I'm grateful for that. I think we had a wonderful education, which I really feel has helped us too. I think the author that we had talk to us, the last meeting we had, said that we all learn how to write, and that's a very important skill. So I think there were a lot of good things too, but certainly they came at a price, and some of our social skills were certainly remiss. I know it took me a while to kind of catch up. I was at Aquinas, but I was a junior, but I probably was more in high school socially. So I had to catch up pretty quick. But I do feel also, and that's why initially when we were going to do these meetings, I thought it'd be interesting to find out how our spiritual lives have kind of developed since then, because I also think that even though they didn't teach us about spirituality itself, that some of the traditions and some of the things that we did, the retreats we went on, some of the things we just followed stayed with us. That's my thinking. That's why I was so curious as to how people have lived their lives since then. Obviously, Dick went all the way through. And so some of the experiences that he had, he must have perceived a little differently, and he made it through. And the rest of us, who decided to leave, still were influenced by a lot of the experiences that we had. And I think they've kind of stayed with us and have been a core. I mean, Stas was talking about how he still prays the rosary and does some of these practices that have kind of been like anchors for us in our lives. And for me, after the anger subsided and I finally returned to the church, I began to kind of understand how they were beneficial. But I didn't really begin to understand that it was about a relationship with God until about 2005, when I started centering prayer. And then I realized, oh, this is what this whole spiritual thing is about. actually having a relationship with God. And then I had wished, boy, I wish they had told me this when I was in the seminary, but at least I learned, and I've been practicing ever since. And I think it's been a wonderful experience for me to, and it's helped me grow and continue to become a more loving person, which I think was really what they were trying to teach us there, but maybe didn't quite have the right program for it. But I do think in terms of topics that we can talk about, certainly a check-in for everybody, see how everybody's coping, how their health is, and that type of thing is good to start with. And then whatever else we want to discuss, I'm kind of curious about how everybody's spiritual development has proceeded. I know that Mike mentioned that he left and then he came back. And when I came back to the Catholic Church, I stuck with it for a while, but about 3 years ago, I just had enough and I switched and became an Episcopalian just because they have more of the values that I believe in at this point, more interest in equality of everyone. I think Dick probably agrees with some of that, but you've stayed within the faith. But it would be interesting to see how all of you have felt that your faith and your spirituality has helped you in your life.
Yeah. Well, there's something to add to that too. Like when the people leave the church for a few years or something like that, I found in the 8th year, when I decided to leave, some of the other guys did too. And I know a guy named Joe, and he was just furious. He says it never had to be this way. And there was a lot of that in that 8th year. Just people were so frustrated with the whole thing, And to a certain extent, I left. I really didn't even hardly know why, but things just weren't right. You buried yourself too deeply in there. And so a lot of what you say kind of touches me a little bit, because I found myself not leaving the church, being devoted to it and everything, but like a personal prayer and that, it just seems like I kind of backed off for a while on that. So, you bring up a valid point as to how do we progress? Because apparently a lot of the elements that went on in the seminary almost negated what should have been a natural thing to do, So I just wanted to make that observation.
How about if we move to Dick Host?
Yeah. Well, check in. I'm doing well. As busy as I want to be, being retired, and keeping myself busy, working at God's Kitchen, and working with a lot of alcoholics and drug addicts. A little side note: I've got a good friend that lives in Florida right now, who 3 weeks ago had his second COVID shot, and today he's lying in the hospital with COVID. So, just because we got the shots does not mean that we're immune from it by any means. Wear the mask, wash the hands. I generally do not like rehashing history at all, my personal history and all that, but as I look back, I think the one word that fits me in the whole process is endurance. I just put up with it, endured the Greek, endured the Latin, endured the dumb retreats, endured the monthly days of recollection, all that kind of crap, I'm sorry. And I had no part in it, I just had to endure it. Again, as Chris said, there's no one patting you on the back, hey, you're doing well, or you're going to do a good job. And I think basically the reason I say it is because I never got my ass kicked out until I was to be ordained a deacon, and that's when they kicked me out. We're telling a certain bishop to go fuck himself, but and much of my service as a priest was endurance, probably until about about 30 years ago. I acknowledged that I was an alcoholic and got into the 12 steps of AA, which have radically changed me. I take my past, don't deny it at all. I had to endure it. But, what am I going to do about it today? How is that going to make a difference today? Am I going to make other people endure my presence? Am I going to be open to bumping into this God, whatever this God is? On the other hand, I refuse to endure the structured church anymore. I think that's got to collapse if the church is going to live. And then I'm doing my best to knock it out brick by brick. I just think we're too much into laws and to theology, and we're not enough into spirituality or doing what Jesus did. Period. I'll end.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen.
Hey, Dick, I just wanted to comment that when I listened to your sermons when you were still practicing, they were great.
Thank you.
You didn't sound just like a guy who endured. You sounded like a guy who'd lived and gained a lot of wisdom, and I really appreciated those sermons.
And at that time, I was already in AA, practicing the steps.
You think that's what it was?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. Well, they were great.
All right. How about, did Dave Hooper check in? Are you there? Okay. Then we will see, according to my list, we move up to Russ Hogan.
I'm here.
Okay. This is your chance to
spout off.
Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate what everybody said. I've been thinking a lot about all the talk about the atmosphere at the seminary, and part of what occurred to me is there was a real, for me anyway, a real lack of warmth there when I look back, that I think had an effect, and lack of empathy, relative lack of empathy of what it was like to be a student there and be away from your family, be in somebody mentioned a boarding school. So I think those things were crucial. And I think the church too at that time was going through an awful lot. I, like Dick, was an alcoholic for several years, got sober about 20 years ago with the help of AA also. And yeah, I have been away from the church for years and years. I got away during the time when I was drinking. I don't know if some of my focus on the sexual abuse crisis in the church and my involvement in that, I know that that's a significant part of that, but I know that social justice is a part of it too, that the church is, well, I guess I think more now probably than historically, but such a small tent. There are so many people that are excluded, kind of like what Jim was saying about being open to people, people that are different. We're all old white guys. Yeah, the church doesn't do a very good job, I don't think, of reaching out. And part of that has to do with some of the rules that they stick to very strongly. I liked a lot the list that Pete Garthe gave before this meeting about possible things to talk about issues in the world, issues in our real lives. So, but I have to say it is good, even though there's kind of a sense of sadness here when I hear everybody talk and I see everybody. I think about those days and kind of how homesick I was some of the time and how sad it was some of the time. But also one of the brightest parts of it was the fellowship that was there, even if it was very limited in terms of closeness, like the author that was with us last time talked about, that we knew people, but there was a limit to how close you could get. So I'll pass with that.
Thanks, Russ.
Russ,
Yep.
were you and Mike Mulcahy in the same class?
I think I get Mike and Chris mixed up. One of the Mulcahy's was a year ahead of me.
I think, Russ, you were in between Chris and me. You were 1 year ahead of me.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about if we move to, I think Jim Hammond would be next on our list.
Yeah, I am. I'm on
Okay. The in terms of check-in, doing fine. My wife and I got our second COVID shots on Saturday, and I would underscore what Dick said about you can still get COVID even though you've had your vaccine. So, but hopefully it'll protect us all from being very sick or hospitalized or worse. I had a couple of other thoughts. I do think that in the future we could find some issues of today that involve the values we have. We have sort of shared values about a lot of things, and those might be interesting to discuss. I do agree with what several have said about the sort of lack of warmth. I've often thought that my time in the seminary changed dramatically when, due to being involved with, oddly enough, the paper, I got to know Father Ancona pretty well. And so that was the only place I got any real mentoring and any real investigation of spiritual life. And connected to with what Dick said about the rules and trapping and bureaucracy and the crap of the church. One of the things I've often thought was, and I'm sure it was probably due to Ancona, was even back then, I learned to make a distinction between that part of the church and what I have always considered, and I've never left the church, what I consider to be sort of core relationship, core values, core beliefs, and how that, and I've held on to those and just sort of had to endure or put up with or set aside some of the rules and trappings that I consider to be nonsense. The other thought I had I've had many times over the years, aside from not having the mentoring, we also were for long periods of time every year without the social support of that we would normally have had if we were not in the seminary, of parents, family, and a more diverse set of relationships. And I've often thought that in some ways, we became each other's support systems and in some ways even each other's parents in terms of helping each other cope with whatever was coming at us, because I didn't feel we were getting it from the structure of the seminary or from the leadership of the seminary. I do agree with Jim's point about self-discipline. I spent most of my career teaching college students, and I am the first to say that self-discipline is often a forgotten value and a forgotten skill. So that's about it. I'll move on.
If I may interrupt for a second here, Jim, what's your last name?
Hammond.
Jim Hammond. Okay, got it. All right. Excuse me. I'm connecting here. So
Jim, let me come in too, Jim. How far did you go in the seminary?
I left at Thanksgiving of my first year at St. John's, which would have been 9th year.
Long time.
Long time. I'm a very stubborn kind of person. And part of it was that I was determined to leave sort of on my own terms when I was ready to leave. It took me a long time to decide whether to stay or leave, several years. And that was a hard decision. And I decided to stay until it was an easy decision.
And wasn't that right around Humani Vitae?
Pardon, Dick?
What, didn't that happen right around, your decision made public was right around Humani Vitae, I believe.
That could be.
Yeah.
I
remember talking to you about it.
Yeah, there are a lot of things with church, the bureaucratic part of the church positions on things that I disagree with. And but I try to make a distinction between, are those really the core, is that really at the core of Catholicism and Christianity or not? And so yeah, that's probably true, Dick. I forget about the timelines of all those things, and I don't remember much Latin anymore. So, but I do remember that one.
Okay, why don't we move up? By my list, it should be Bill Gabard and then Pete Garthe. Have I missed anybody in between? Over to Bill Gebhard.
Well, I think I'm doing well. I'm in Florida right now. Wanted to flee the Michigan winters, which I have been doing now for most of my retirement. I have had my second COVID shot. I had to fly back to Michigan to get it. So, you know, I'm not sure getting on an airplane to get a COVID shot, you know, that's the way it went. Anyway, I did that. And I think one of the things that I'm most upset about is that we never got the angst of prom. You know, we never had to suffer through that, and I'm pretty pissed at the seminary that they didn't let us.
So deprived.
That, you know, we never, you know, we didn't get to have that. But you know, the topics, you know, Pete, again, I bow to his superior intellect and in terms of the number of topics that he put out there. But, you know, I just, as I look at it, one of the things that concerns me the most is that the Catholic Church just seems to be out of step with what's going on right now in the world, and is not concentrating on some of the issues that should be addressed, instead of concentrating on areas that seem to be more divisive. There's just a whole lot of things that I think that we, as Catholics or as former Catholics or whatever, or as humans, should be more concerned about than what we seem to be hearing from the pulpits and things like that. So I'm a little disappointed that the church is not more on the front lines of a lot of issues, or at least in the various parishes that I've seen. So other than that, I hope you guys are doing well.
Thanks, Bill.
How about Pete, and then over to his neighbor and photographer, Tom Dalton. Is that right?
I was going to talk about Tom. Are you coming to us, Tom, from Otilia Street?
I certainly am.
Oh my gosh. Tom, I moved in 1979 to Otilia Street Southeast, which is just south of the seminary. And lo and behold, Tom was my next door neighbor. And I don't know if we talked much about the seminary, and I don't even know if I know what years you were there.
We talked a little bit, but it took us a couple of years to discover that we had that in common.
Okay. What years were you at St. Joe's?
59, 60, real short timer.
Okay, so
I'm 1 year older than you.
1 year older, okay. Very good.
You got time off for good behavior?
I'll get into that when it's my turn, maybe.
Yeah, Tom, in our prior sessions, we kind of talked about what we've done since we left the seminary. So hopefully you'll fill everybody in on that, because I know you've been very involved still in the church in that. And are the Mulcahy boys coming to us from both of you from Florida?
Oh, one in Michigan and one in Michigan, one in Florida.
Okay, Chris is in Florida then. Mike,
Yeah.
but don't you go down to Florida a lot?
My wife is about a couple hundred yards from where Chris is right now.
Okay.
A safe distance.
Anyway, Chris, what Chris was talking about, that really came home to me. I really think he had a very good point there as far as the lack of encouragement that we had maybe in the seminary. Someone telling us they really were happy we were there and appreciated it and wanted, to really pull us forward and look forward to become priests someday and give us that encouragement, and the feeling that they really wanted us may have been a big factor in a lot of us leaving. I left in '68 at the end of college, and half my class, this is at same areas in Baltimore, left that same year. We just all left. And I guess, and Frank said he didn't know why he left, and I'm not really sure why I had any strong reasons at the time. Just didn't want to go forward. And then maybe it was the lack of someone there, really encouraging me to stay in and looking forward to work with me as a priest or something. Summer times too, we were kind of just left on our own, and we didn't have much contact with the seminary people or, during the summer times. And anyway, I thought Chris's point was very good, and I think that might explain a lot of the reasons. These issues I raised, I frankly don't care. We talk about any of them. It's just things that came to mind. I still have an interest in a lot of the issues in the church, and I'm curious with Jim Hammond. He mentions a lot of things that he disagrees with the position the church proper takes, and I do too. And maybe we can talk about those sometime, but we got plenty of time to talk about all these things. We certainly don't have to talk about them at once. Anyway, I don't really have anything more to add really tonight.
Okay, over to Tom Dalton. Tom is the guy who is our resident photographer there. Has managed to get over there and keep track of great pictures of what's been going on in the former seminary, we got to call it now. And I think this is the first time I've actually seen you, Tom, and talked with you. It's always been done by email.
That's correct. Yeah, this is the first time. I think I've always been around the seminary. That I grew up, lived within less than a mile of seminary for all of about, except for 6 years of my life, approximately 6 years. So, as a kid, I was riding my bike across the grounds when I'd have to go up to Burton and Eastern, if you remember that area, there were some stores. There was a bakery there. I would cut through the grounds. My friends and I would play football after school when we were in grade school. And so that's probably why the fence went up with the barbed wire, because sisters would come out and tell us we couldn't be there. We shouldn't be there playing. But it was a good place to go. It was better than Garfield Park, which was 3 blocks away. And all of us lived right around there, so it was really close. But 1 year there is what I spent. I can remember, I think there was one of the guys that started when I did left after 3 days. Rather homesick, whatever, I don't even know, didn't really know him. I got there and I thought, boy, this is a little different than I thought. No, I've been in Boy Scouts, and I would go camping over the weekends with the rest of the Scouts and the Scoutmaster. And I thought, no, that's not bad. And then I would go to summer camp for Boy Scouts. That would be a week. And I first started going there. I thought, oh, I don't know, I'm homesick. Is that what well, okay. So I made it through, and then I would go and it was fine. I got to the seminary. I thought, after a week or so, boy, wait, I've been to summer camp and that was a week. This is just extending it. And after that, I was fine. I thought that was just a fine place to go. Everything was okay with me. Didn't run into any problems, but I guess some of my classmates were not comfortable. The thing that I discovered that changed things was you were supposed to be a good student. And you were supposed to get good grades at everything. Well, that part, I would work in helping out with changing light bulbs, whatever I can't even remember what the name of they had a name for the committee or the group or something like that, that would help George, the janitor, or George, the maintenance man, take care of things. And during our free time, I would be cleaning furnace filters, going into the kitchen, going down into the gym, or whatever, and doing things like that. And I thought, this is really great. And then, gee, I'm supposed to study and I got to memorize, algebra, man, I don't know about that. So I think that was one of the things, reasons why I left, because I wasn't really great there. And that's what Monsignor Moran told me was, it's just, you don't have the grades. Yeah, that's true. And I left, went to Catholic Central here in Grand Rapids. And I was surprised when I got to Catholic Central as to how many guys there were from my class in the seminary. And at that time, West Catholic Central was separate and only went as far as the 10th grade. And then for 11th, 12th grade, students would come over. Well, when the West Catholic students came over, there was another whole bunch of guys that had been in the seminary with me. I was really surprised to see all of them. But that's the way it went. And I went on from there, and different things in my life. I went into, I learned photography while I was still going to college here in Grand Rapids. So that's kind of where I got my photo skills, where I started. I worked in a studio, dark room, all of that. I wanted to go into television. I decided I wanted to do that because I had some contact with people who knew people in radio or television. So eventually I did get into television production for a number of years. One of the things I did was after I got out of working for a TV station for a while, because things change all of a sudden, hey, you're out of a job, that I did some freelance video work. And I don't even remember how I got in contact with the diocese, the communications director at that time. I went to work part-time for the diocese. I was doing freelance video work, and somehow I came across somebody that was Father Robert Sirico, who is pastor now at St. James in Grand Rapids. And he was trying to put together a television program of some sorts that he wanted to present to the diocese. And I was at this production house, and I happened to be there, and they were trying to do it with one camera. And I talked to the guy who was putting it together and said, well, you don't have two cameras, you could just do it. You don't have to do all this editing. Tried to explain to him. He says, gee, I don't understand what you're doing. I said, why don't you talk to him? And if you can work with him or whatever, fine. I'll give them up as a client. You can have them. And so that's how we started. The program is called Catholic Outlook. It started about 1990 and would run after the Mass, or actually they would have to cut away from Mass the last 15 minutes a couple of times a month. And we would do that program. Father Circo did it for a couple of years. For whatever reasons, he left, and then Monsignor Gus Ancona took over being the host. And so I did that until about 1999. Again, that was kind of a freelance deal. I'd worked for the diocese in 89, 90 for a year part-time, while I was still doing independent contractor for doing the television program for them. Eventually went back to school, and through an extension program from Loyola, New Orleans, got my master's degree in pastoral studies, which I heard after watching and recording the last one that Norb Bufka mentioned that he had that degree. So we both had the same degree, same program, but he was through the Diocese of Saginaw, I believe it was. And I was through the Diocese of Saginaw. Went to work then, left the TV, job opened up at a parish in Grand Rapids, well, in Jenison, Holy Redeemer Parish in Jenison. And I became the director of adult formation. And I was there for 3 years. First 2 years was as pastor. He retired, and lo and behold, a priest by the name of Dick Lowy showed up as the new pastor. So I won't get a lot into that, but basically after a year, he said, I don't think this is going to work out. But he did point out that the diocese was looking for somebody or to be in charge of a new conference center that the diocese was putting together, which happened to be St. Henry. They'd converted St. Henry's Hall to St. Henry Spirituality and Ministry Center. They eliminated some of the rooms so that each room had its own bathroom and a bedroom, like a small motel room. They had, I think, about 6 rooms that actually had a little living room, a bedroom, and a bathroom. No more gang showers, gang bathrooms, whatever, that was all gone. So I was doing that. Bishop Rose was the one who was the bishop, and I guess he's the one that hired me, but I think I had a little help also from Terry Stewart, Monsignor Stewart, gave me some recommendation, but did that. Went through Bishop Britt, who died, unfortunately, was bishop less than a year. Bishop Hurley came along and decided, well, really everything needs to be consolidated in one place. We're going to move downtown. And so that's when the seminary grounds were sold. That was back in 2008. And a new building down at the corner of Wealthy and Division was renovated by the bishop. A lot of things in the area were renovated, became Cathedral Square. And bishop said, well, you know, we're not really going to have a spirituality and ministry center, things like that, but we've been helping out with child and youth protection, or protecting God's children. We want you to take that over, because the person that had been doing it was no longer there, and they just had several of us kind of working part-time. So I said, okay, I'll do that. And about a week before we were going to move downtown, the bishop called me in his office again. He said, we do need somebody to run the meeting center downtown, the conference center. So we would like you to do that and take care of the child and youth protection, the safe environment program. And I said, okay. So I had 2 full-time jobs at one full-time price or whatever, trying to take care of 2 things at once. But I was there and retired from the diocese in 2016. So I guess looking back in places I've lived, went away for my last 2 years of college, University of Alaska, Fairbanks, came back. I've only been out of the area maybe 6 years or so. Other than that, I've been living within less than a mile of the St. Joe Seminary grounds. So for now, I guess that's enough me boring you.
I got a burning question here. What's going on with the grounds now? What is that? What sold it in 2008?
Okay. it's converted, the main building and the gym, it's been converted to like low income housing apartments, and then I'm trying to think, child placement type of thing. St. Henry's was sold to, I can't even think of another nonprofit.
Bethany Christian.
Yeah, Bethany Christian Services got St. Henry's. And so there's two different things going on there, two different businesses in effect.
Main seminary building is still there though?
Yeah, it's still, the outside looks the same because they got it declared as a historic building. So the outside looks even better than it did, I think, when we were there, because they really went to a lot of work restoring the outside. The inside, you would have a hard time recognizing. Having gone through there last spring, I was trying to take some pictures, send them to Bill, and that, like the refectory, you can't recognize it because they built so many walls and so many rooms in there. And the same thing is in the dormitories upstairs. They made rooms, both sides of the third floor dormitories where the corrals were. It's rooms. Fourth floor, I don't know, because when I was up at the fourth floor, they hadn't started any work on it. So I don't know what's going on there. But it is, the inside is like about 100% changed.
Couple things, Mike Mulcahy, you might want to check the our website, the alumni website. A lot of the photos that Tom Dalton took have been posted there, along with some from other sources, and I think they give you a pretty good picture of what's been going on over there. And I was really amazed at how quickly it was done. The Samaritas used to be Lutheran Social Services, acquired the property in 2019, and they had a groundbreaking ceremony for the renovations in November of 2019. And with almost 1 year to the date, in around Thanksgiving, I think, of 2020 is when they had sort of a groundbreaking ceremony, or a ribbon cutting. At that point, they had to do it sort of a virtual ribbon cutting. They had some of their staff out in front officially cutting the ribbons. But one of the nice things they did was to have their video production people go in and actually take some nice video of the inside of several of the areas. So you might want to do that. One thing back over to Tom Dalton, with your technical skills and the fact that you're in Grand Rapids, if you're willing, I'd like to hook you up with someone, I can't think of his name right now, but he's contacted me several times, and I think he's one of the possibly even a couple of years older than you in that class setting. But he said that he has a number of reels of, I think it was 8mm film that he took, and I can't remember the exact years. It was maybe the late 50s, that showed stuff around the seminary. Just to put that in timeline, he said that, as I recall, he won the camera at one of the benefits that was going on, where they had a raffle or something in one of those things, and so he acquired this video or this movie camera and took a lot of pictures. But he said he doesn't have a projector anymore that works, and I tried to encourage him to let me know exactly how many reels he had, because maybe we could come up with a way of transferring that onto a CD or DVD. He also said that he took some photos of the closing ceremony. Would that have been 2008? Somebody mentioned? Yeah. Right. And so he said he has some photos that he took on that day at the big ceremony that they had. And again, I was trying to encourage him to put them on a DVD and mail them to me, but maybe the two of you could hook up and see what he has and what your recommendations would be for getting them more available to people.
Yeah. I can tell you right now, the thing to do would probably go to a place, I think it's called Mark's Photoshop, where they will transfer all kinds of old film, whatever you have, whether it's regular still shots, negatives, old 8mm movie film, whatever it may be. They can transfer that and put it on a disc or put it onto whatever kind of electronic brain that you may have available. But yeah, maybe, if you don't want to contact them, or if you want to contact me later,
okay, that'd be great.
Whatever, we can talk about it and kind of figure out maybe what to do, where to go, what to do, how to handle it.
Right. One of the interesting things was, I think it was John Mullally sent me some materials related to the closing ceremony. And one of the things that was available was sort of a walking tour of several areas in there. And the interesting thing was, they pointed out what those different rooms were used for early on, back before the opening of St. Henry's. And for one thing, I didn't realize, I guess, before they opened the convent next door, that actually the nuns lived in that same building as the rest of everybody. I didn't realize, it never occurred to me.
I think they lived where the infirmary was on the second floor, where Sister Christopher had her bed.
Oh, okay.
Whatever. I think that wing was where the sisters lived.
Oh, okay. The other thing that I found interesting in that floor plan was it talked about the bowling alley.
Yes.
And as I originally thought that the bowling alley was part of the old gym, that somehow but it looks like it was that ground or the basement level, right there where, and I kind of remember seeing like markings on the floor of a bowling lane.
There were two bowling lanes set up, and it would be like under the hallway where the front door is, where the main front entrance is.
Mm-hmm.
There were two, and I only know that because I saw old photographs of it. And when I was there, I thought, wow, this is where it was. This is where the bowling alley was, but it was under like the main hallway, and the bowling alleys were running east and west, and they were up against the wall.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was kind of interesting. I saw those old photos too, and I could not really figure out where that was. There weren't any clues in the photos about how it was placed. Let's move up. Last on our list, the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. Up to Paul Banner.
I like being last. I am doing well. I get my second COVID tomorrow afternoon. Just commenting on it, we still need to mask and social distance. We're all in this together, trying to prevent the spread of this thing. Hopefully the COVID will protect most of us or the vaccine will protect most of us from coming down with it, or if we do run into it, that get mild cases. But now this is a challenge for the whole planet, and in some ways, this shows us how we're all brothers, sisters, and we all need to be taking care of each other. See what else is going on. I had an encounter with my table saw back in the middle of January, so I'm not going to keep quite all of my thumb, but it's coming back. My seminary.
Yeah, I remember that.
My seminary experience, I didn't feel so isolated and that type of thing. I don't know, maybe it had something to do with where I was coming from, that I did not have a Catholic school education. I did have CCD and knew the Baltimore Catechism up to whatever the version was that we memorized in the seminary. My family was quite Catholic. My mother's mother nursed one of the young parish priests over in Albion during the Spanish flu, and she was that family was knew every priest in the Lansing diocese, because this Father, I'm blocking, Father Coyle, Monsignor Coyle, brought all of them into the family, and it was an outdoors family. They grew up in the Gaylord area, out in the woods. It was nothing like what I had. I was just a farm boy. And I felt like I knew the priests to some extent. We had 2 Mike McKennas in our class. Well, my pastor was Vincent McKenna, and he had taught at the seminary a number of years. He was their Greek prof for a while. So when we were, that first 6 weeks wandering around campus, I'd have priests, especially Father Guzikowski, come up to me and said, "Now, are you McKenna?" And I figured, well, yeah, I'm from Father McKenna's parish. And that just confused it all the more for those guys, I think. It took me about 4 years to figure out that was actually what was going on. I'm a little dense. I did use Father Guzikowski as a spiritual director. I don't think he did a particularly good job for me, but I did have spiritual direction for what it was. I always thought I had a strong relationship with Father Rose, but we weren't buddy, but I was comfortable with talking to him on just about anything and everything. I think I'm a Vatican II Catholic, or maybe a post-Vatican II Catholic. I still am involved in parishes and some of that stuff, but The you know, the church is just, you know, it's fallen way behind us as far as what religion should be calling us to be. I am struggling with the concept of a spiritual afterlife. All the stuff that we're doing with our, you know, deepening grasp of the science that explains the world that we're in, looking at the vast universe. No, it's amazing. And, you know, if Jesus has, you know, if that message links together, going back to Thomas Aquinas, you know, it can't contradict what we learn from science, or it's really phony. So that's you know, enough of that. But that's where I'm at. I don't know where it's going to go. I have been, you know, when I left the seminary, I spent a couple of years at Grand Valley, finished my bachelor's degree, and then got involved in business in the Kalamazoo area. You know, I've kept contact with several of the priests, you know, in our generation in the Kalamazoo diocese. That Mike Hazard is a friend. The see Chuck Fisher once in a while. And I'm blocking on a name here. He was in, I think he was in Dick and Frank's class.
I mean, Bob Flickinger?
Bob Flickinger, yeah.
He was a year older than we were.
Mm-hmm. You know, that Bob is, you know, my wife is non-Catholic. She's, you know, has a very strong faith, a stronger faith than mine maybe, but we complement each other very well. We have two kids. Our son was a good friend of Father Flickinger. When Matt was looking for colleges, we couldn't get away to Chicago to go to Northwestern when he wanted to look at Northwestern. So Bob took him for the weekend, and Matt really was, you know, Harvard really sounded good to him. But when they got back from Chicago, Bob said to Sue, he's going to Northwestern. Don't worry about going any place else. That's where he's going to go. And he did. He ended up spending 13 years in the UK flying satellites. And when he met this young British lass and they decided to get married, he flew Father Bob over to do the wedding. So, you know, but the relationship really isn't primarily a liturgical celebration relationship. It's, you know, it's people and one-on-one. You know, my mission has been to, you know, build the family of God with whomever I'm dealing with. And, you know, and it's I'm involved with park and trail construction in Kalamazoo County, and I'm been on the library board for the city of Parchment since 1986, and probably will be carried out in the coffin from there. So, but have at it.
Let me get just a couple comments in here. Chris Mulkey, what you were saying about nobody ever saying, you're doing a good job, or, you know, you need improvement in this area. It just never occurred to me until you mentioned it. That was my exact experience. Nobody ever said anything to me. My grades, I guess, were pretty good. But nobody ever complimented me or suggested an improvement in any particular area. And I don't ever recall, as I mentioned, I think to the group in the past, I don't ever recall having anybody, at least that I can remember, who could be classified as a spiritual director. Even especially in the last year when I was struggling with, you know, health problems, nobody said anything to me. Nobody even, and even to this day, I'd never understood what happens in the training of priests. So it was funny. Somebody was mentioning about doing a lot of work around the seminary. Maybe it was Russ Hogan. And I thought, well, heck, that was the experience that many pastors are responsible for today, you know, taking care of the boilers and all that kind of stuff.
I think that was me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and throw one thing. What is it? The last towards the end of the year, just before everybody's leaving for the summer, the 6th year guys would all have something to say about the 1st year guys that they were supposed to encourage them or something. I don't remember what it's called, but it was, I don't know if they were prophesying or whatever it was, but Larry Spitzley did mine. And it was, Father Zaskowski should give up the ghost so Thomas, called Dalton, can step in his post, because I was doing so many things around the seminary.
Yeah, and I think that's true of our late classmate, Tom Kabildis. He apparently had keys to everything, and he was the guy that people would, not so much the students, but the faculty, everybody around there. If you got locked out of something, Tom knew how to get you in.
Real smart was
in locks. Tom was able to crack my master padlock on my locker, and he knew my grades before I actually opened the doggone envelope sometimes. If you had a secret and Tom wanted to know it, he could find out. Still, back to what you were saying a moment ago, just let me do this just one time. But I solicit everybody. Was the lack of communication with the faculty possibly due to fear of homosexuality or instructions related to such a thing? It just seems like, I mean, our rector was certainly had feminine characteristics. I'm not attributing any ill behavior to anybody. I'm just saying, was there a policy hands off and no touch, and keep away from these guys.
I'll jump in. I never felt that way. There was two students who were expelled in the class ahead of us for being gay. But I never felt that. I did. I mentioned before that the only real connection I had that was personal, that seemed like mentoring, was with Gus Ancona. And Gus did some things that I don't know if other people had these experiences with other ones. Gus had a group of us that would sneak up to his room in Henry Hall one evening a week. And we would get together to watch The Man from U.N.C.L.E. on TV. And so it was very, a lot of camaraderie, and there were about probably, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 students. And it was just, you got to see Gus as a human being, and he got to see us as outside of class and outside of the sort of stricture of things. The other thing that came from that, and from a couple other places, one of the positives I took away from seminary experience was I always felt free in certain circumstances. That anything was fair game to talk about. I could criticize the church. I could ask for explanations of things. I could disagree with things. That was a positive thing to take away. And a lot of that, I think, came from Gus and from a few other people. Father Rose was that way in a few situations I was in with him, and a few others. But they were not always dogmatic. They let us question the rationale behind different things, which I thought was useful.
I want to comment, Chris, on your comment there. I never felt there was any homosexuality fears myself. And as far as Moran, when I was in my first year there, which would have been, we were 13, my grandma, who I was very close to, passed away. And I think when my parents called him to let him know that, he would have to tell me that I might take it kind of bad. And so I always will remember this because it's the only time I think he touched me. But when I came out of the chapel, it was right after our evening chapel, we were going up to the dorm. He pulled me out of line because, we used to always single file out of there. And he grabbed me by my arm. And I felt some comfort. I mean, it was his way of knowing that, okay, this is going to be tough news for him. And then he told me that my grandma had died. And I did find his holding my arm, as comforting. And that was the only kind of physical comfort that I remember from any of the priests. But I do remember Father Tomey. And I actually got a chance to see him before he passed away. He was 95 or 96. And I told him this, that he was the one that had the most joy of all the guys, of all the priests that I can remember. And I did tell him that he was a good role model because at least he exuded some joy, more so than some of the other guys. And yeah, I mean, for me, that was the extent of it, but I never sensed that there was any homosexuality. I just thought it was more, that's the way they were trying to train us, and being affectionate or caring wasn't part of the program. That's not how you self-discipline these guys, I guess. But yeah, those were some of my experiences.
Did it ever, just to put in a thought there, while I'm listening to this, I didn't experience any of that either. And, it might be that this was something that the people who ran the seminary and the diocese was aware of. And it could be that a certain amount of that distancing was their care to make sure that nothing of that nature would ever enter our lives, if you think about it, they had a strict hands-off policy, and you were never going to see that there. So,
I met Father Laskowski the year prior to us starting in the seminary. They were refinishing the pews in the old part of the chapel, and many fathers, men from the parishes would come in and do the work. And I went with my dad, so I got to meet him. And then like Bill and Camildus and I were on some of the maintenance committee type of stuff. And I remember going at least once to the old prison in Jackson with Father Laskowski. He was going to pick up some stuff. I don't know what it was. Maybe some pink paint or something. I don't know,
We took some lockers apart.
It was something. So I remember doing that. And then I think it was either our first year, definitely our second year of college, he took some of us golfing. And he needed a caddy, so I pulled his clubs along with, but I could use his clubs. He never gave instructions. He just, but that was his love. He loved golfing. And even on that basement floor, he'd go in there. There was a net set up, and he would practice his swing.
Yeah, I remember. Stas,
pardon me?
Now that you say that, I remember I went with, I think, Frank Marfia and then I don't know if you went, and then Father Laskowski. I do remember that. We went to Indian Trails.
Yeah.
I remember that. That was,
So that was probably the most human contact I had there. Nothing prayer-wise, but just being a good person.
I had Father Laskowski actually baptized me at Mount Pleasant at Sacred Heart Parish. And he was a friend of my dad's. He knew my dad because they went to school together. And Monsignor Shaw, he taught my dad religion at Catholic Central when my dad went there. So, but I never had, except for one time, I was in their room, but that was it. Any other interaction was in class, and that was it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I want to take a little turn here, maybe more than a little one. I reiterate my broken heart that such wonderful guys as you, who in your youth intended to serve the church. I don't believe for 1 minute that we went to a boarding school. We went to a seminary. It was St. Joseph's Seminary, and we knew what we were doing. But I don't want you to get away without hearing a little bit from my brother Mike, who is on the front line. We've done a good bit of memory lane. Let's do a little bit, go in the other direction. My brother Mike has committed a big chunk of his life to addressing the problem of the bishops in the United States and around the world, and the condition of the church. And he gives me large doses of this stuff, which is sometimes difficult to handle. I solicit him giving us an inoculation of maybe 5 minutes of it. But one of the nice things about it is that he believes that the seminaries as they exist now, many of them, some of them, I'll let him say what the proportions are producing wonderful priests in considerable numbers. Mike, you want to take it away?
Well, I don't want to take up a bunch of time on this, but I'll make two comments, I guess. One, in the Traverse City area, which is where I am right now, we have 9 young priests that are, every last one of them is amazing. And I know them all personally. You know, I got a boat up here. I take them out on a boat. I'm doing whatever I can to, you know, bolster their mission. They are, they're just great. Second thing I would say, and I'll just keep these to headlines here because there's not enough time to do a deep dive on this, and that is that the year 1968, I think either was alluded to or mentioned a couple of times as the evening unfolded. That is a huge year historically. If we go back and evaluate the many, 1968 was like the year 1500. 1500 was a gigantic year for the Catholic Church. 1500 plus or minus a few years. You know, we had Columbus discover America. The Vatican was built. Martin Luther started the breakaway from the Catholic Church. The financial center of the universe moved from Venice up to Amsterdam. Shipping moved from the Mediterranean to the whole world. The Spaniards took off with the world's greatest economy that had ever existed up until that time. All of this stuff just had the Renaissance, gigantic impact on the Catholic Church. I compare that in some ways with 1968, plus or minus a few years. And if we don't get a grip on what happened in 1968, we have a hard time figuring out where we are at sea. And we are at sea right now. I don't know how many people would put their hands up. I'm not asking for anybody to. Do we have a great Pope right now? Do we have great bishops right now? Do we have clear Catholic teaching right now? Does it map into the scriptures right now? Has anybody, I'll just throw these out as rhetorical questions. Has anybody read Michael Rose's book, Goodbye, Good Men? Has anybody read The Faithful Departed by Philip, I can't think of his last name right now. So there's so many things that have happened just in our lifetime, and we're living right through the middle of it. And it's hard to get our bearings when there are so many moving pieces that are just flying all over the place. I'm going to quit right there. Sorry.
Let me throw in one comment, Chris. I never saw any evidence of homosexuality, and I don't really think it was a formal policy of the people running the seminary. I think what we talked about, and you weren't part of the discussion with, I forgot what his name is already, last month's author.
Shelley.
And I think one of the things that struck me about his book was that seminaries of that era were sort of automatically structured to be solo institutions. People were not really part of a community. We were all, at least it's my thinking, that we were all sort of like individuals on our own, sort of hermits in a, or like maybe being in a monastery. Somebody mentioned that once before. And I think that is sort of inbred into the way seminaries were organized and run for hundreds of years. And I do remember, and I don't think I was running the seminary paper, the recorder at that time, but either in 64, 65, or 66, we had a big breaking story on the front page. Faculty breaks grand silence. and it was all about the fact that somehow, you know, the faculty members decided to meet with people, you know, from the student body. I don't even know if we organized, we're organizing a student council or anything at that time, but I still remember that headline, that it was, you know, faculty breaks grand silence. And that, in retrospect, that sort of reiterates the general thinking of seminaries at that time. It was just like, you didn't talk to one another. You didn't, at least that was my experience. Now, some of you guys had other experiences in there, but that sort of, and I don't know whether it was it Dick Gallant? Are you on the school paper? Somebody mentioned that tonight.
I was, I think I did the sports area, but I honestly don't remember that headline. Doesn't mean it didn't exist. I was thinking that it might have happened after I left.
Oh, okay. All right.
But Bill, comment on this. I mean, you can have a long tradition and it'll stay that way if it works. But this wasn't working.
Right.
You know, our class 88 came in. They went away. I mean, doesn't management have an obligation to learn or to observe? I mean, it didn't get the job done. It was a failure. I mean, you know, we had great lives. We got great benefits out of it at the cost of our parish and our parents paying the tuition. But as a seminary, it was a failure. No?
Well, our class lost everybody. After the 8th year, no one existed in the class as a potential priest that I was aware of.
Yeah. I mean, if you're running an ice cream store and the customers just kind of waste away, and pretty soon yeah, you kind of scratch your head, I would have thought, and said, golly, can't we do something different?
Well, the amazing thing was that it seemed to end so fast. The year before us, there was the standard 7 or 8 priests, you know, your 7 to 10% yield. And it started with our class. Dick and I were the last ones. The next class had like 89 students, more than us. And they had 2 that was ordained. And, you know, it's just like, you know, there was no long-term thing indicating this. It just stopped, you know, in a period of 1 or 2 years. In all fairness to them, there was no down, you know, 5 or 10 year down year swing. It just basically ended, you know.
I think it would be an interesting study to actually go back, and this would require extensive look at the archives of the diocese and any diocese around the country to actually keep track. Now, somebody said we had 89 in our opening class in the fall of 1960. I wasn't aware that it was that many, but it would be interesting to actually see, first of all, how many of the first year students. We know that among our first year students, only I think 16 of us ended up graduating in 66. But it would be interesting to take a look at some of those. I think of the class photos that were put together and are on the website. I wonder, I keep looking at those pictures saying, you know, I recognize so-and-so as being a priest, but I wonder how many of the others in the whatever hundreds of guys that have graduated from the seminary actually ended up being ordained. My initial thinking was probably in the early years, probably a lot of them were ordained. But as time went by, the numbers of actual ordinations was shrinking. That's just a gut reaction on my part. I don't know.
These two books that I mentioned, Good by Good Men by Michael Rose. I mean, that book, he was a Catholic church architect. And so architects always had good access to the bishops. But in the end, he interviewed 400 people from the 10 biggest seminaries in what I will call the West. I think one of them might have been a Mexican seminary, one might have been a Canadian seminary, and the other 8 were in the United States. But he interviewed 400 people, either seminarians that left, priests that made it through, rectors and administrative faculty, the admissions boards, and bishops, and rejected aspirants to the priesthood. And he took this composition of 400 interviews and turned them into this book, and it goes right to the issues that we're talking about right now. I don't know if I'm the only one here that's read that book or if we all have, you know, but it is considered to be kind of like a basic. There's another one that's similar to it called The Faithful Departed, that focuses strictly on the Boston Archdiocese, but goes back through the history of the Boston Archdiocese from the accession of Pius X to the throne of Peter in, I think, 1905 to the present. And Philip Lawler is the author there. He was Cardinal Law's publications director and communications director. So he had a front row seat to the Boston Archdiocese meltdown. And I think both of those are just really, really informative. They put a layer over our experience at St. Joe's that I think is illuminating.
I want to comment on something Mike said earlier. The parish we go to here in Virginia, we have a very traditional pastor that most people don't get along with very well. But every year, every 2 or 3 years, we get a new assistant who is just newly ordained. They have generally been terrific. And I think part of that is how they come to us. Most of them have, well, none of them got into the seminary until after they'd gotten out of college, but most of them have had another life before they went into the seminary. One was, went to the Coast Guard Academy and served his time in the Coast Guard. Another one was a businessman for a number of years. Another, his undergraduate was in chemical engineering, and he did things in that field for a while. And so they come with a much different breadth of perspective from their backgrounds than in our era, where virtually everyone had the same background. And I think that's been a big plus.
Insightful, yeah.
One interesting comment. Several of the guys mentioned the COVID vaccine. Well, I got my first one last Thursday, and it's, you know, living in the Detroit area, we seem to have been among the last people in the state to get you know, our hospitals, our pharmacies, whatever. You know, I was on the Ford Hospital waiting list for probably 4 or 5 weeks before I finally heard from them. I was on Myers' list. I tried to enroll. Oakland County had a waiting list. But so I have had round one. I'll get my second dose in next week, I believe. The interesting thing was, I recently posted on my Facebook page an article from the Atlantic that was from either last week or, yeah, I think it was last week. And the title of it was, "You Got the Vaccine, What Can You Do Now?" And one of the takeaways in there was you need to stop thinking in terms of how your life is affected. You got to remember that we're all in this together, and everything you do, even if you've had the vaccine, is still going to have a major impact on everybody else. So this, I think it was Paul or somebody that mentioned we got to take a look at the bigger picture, not just how we as individuals and our families and our immediate neighbors are affected by our decision to get a vaccine or get vaccinated. The other thing that I found kind of interesting, and this kind of relates to overall what's going on in the church today. There was an article and about Pope Benedict and his message that he sent to some of the real conservative elements of the Catholic Church that said that were criticizing him for his decision to retire. And some of these sort of real kind of on the ultra side don't recognize his retirement as being valid. And he was responding to that. But the interesting thing was the picture that they showed that went along with him. He's 93 now and very, very feeble. I mean, I was absolutely shocked when I saw that photo. And I kept thinking when I looked at that, my God, if he was still, had not retired and was still running the church today, what kind of leadership would we have, and what would he be? Somebody, I mean, not that there's anything wrong with getting old, but he appeared to be in very ill health and very, very feeble, although apparently he, from what he was saying, is mentally alert. So that was just a comment about that. Then you might want to take a look at that article. I think it was even in the Associated Press today. The other thing in general, and I think I've mentioned this before, I guess I would consider myself not as an ex-Catholic, but as a discouraged and disappointed Catholic. When I got my first real paying job was teaching in the Detroit school system. And that was in 1968 to 1977. What I was witnessing was the Catholic parishes and churches were abandoning or were closing all around the city of Detroit. It had not yet reached the suburbs. But while I was dealing with some of the poorest community, one of the poorest communities in Detroit, I saw no evidence of the Catholic Church being involved in any efforts to join in and address that problem. The one thing I do remember is that one of several of the most progressive pastors of churches, they were being shunted off to less desirable parishes where they were sort of out of sight, out of mind. Even though one of the most progressive bishops was Bishop Gumbleton, he was very outspoken in his criticisms of what was taking place around Detroit. And he sort of got shunted around too to be placed in charge of a parish that was, again, one of those out of sight, out of mind situations. After I gave up on teaching and went into the next big one was working with people with developmental disabilities. never once saw any evidence of the Catholic Church being involved in, I mean, I dealt with multiple agencies, social human service agencies around the Detroit area. The whole idea was to test ways of getting homemaker and home health aid services to those kinds of families who needed help with dealing with especially their aging children and their inability to provide the kind of care that I never saw any evidence of the involvement of Catholic social services, for example, in that effort. From there, I went on to Brighton Hospital dealing with substance abuse issues for 9 years or so. Once again, I had no evidence, no contact with any churches, or not just the Catholic Church, but any churches involved with dealing with that issue. And I guess early on, back in the late 60s, I went to Jesu Church, Jesu Parish, right across the street from the University of Detroit. That was a Jesuit parish. And I would go there on Sundays, and it was a couple miles away from where I lived. So I drove, and a lot of people, you go out to the parking lot, everybody would rush to get in their cars and take off for the suburbs. It was like, and again, once again, no evidence that I could see that anybody, whether it was the church itself or their members, were really addressing a lot of the catastrophic social upheaval that was taking place in the immediate environment of that parish, which at that point was still among the better, or the not say wealthiest, but it was not a poor neighborhood at that point, economically poor. But that guy, I guess that kind of added to my disappointment with what I saw going on within the church. So that kind of deals with the issues that several of us have mentioned tonight. I guess that's why I consider myself to be a discouraged or disappointed Catholic. So with that, I'll throw the floor open to anybody that has anything else they want to say, or if you want to continue a discussion, that's fine with me.
Bill?
Yeah.
I wrote this in, but I'd like to mention this as a follow-up from the last meeting. Frank, I was hoping Frank would be here, but it's interesting. You recall that his issue had to be when I guess your class was going to the major seminary. You had your 6 years in, and you took a test.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the Minnesota test. And so the interesting thing is that I was talking to my brother, who's younger than I. He was actually in the seminary for 4 years, but he that very test ended up going to the Supreme Court. And what happened was that Detroit Edison gave the test, and the UAW challenged them, asking if they could get the keys to the test. That was kind of the gist of the argument, if you will. It ended up, and this is where my brother kind of fit in, if you will, that it went to the 6th District Court of Appeals, and he worked there. He worked for one of the judges, which is in Cincinnati. That's where they meet. He was actually living in Akron, and they come together when they make some of the decisions. And the decision was, I mean, the issue then was, could the UAW get the keys to the test? They did not want to, they being Minnesota and the contract or whatever they had with the Detroit Edison, didn't want them to get it. The ruling was a 2-to-1 ruling that was in favor of giving the test. In other words, letting access to the test. However, the court, then that was challenged, and it ended up in the Supreme Court. And the court decided, the Supreme Court, this U.S. Supreme Court decided 6-2 or 6-3, wasn't sure, in favor of Edison in that case. And the reason is that, well, they had keys, and there was issues of if you got the test, then you could kind of get the answers, and how, you know, it was a personality test, and you could get, you know, kind of rotate your answers to get the whatever you wanted them to think you were. And so I thought that was interesting that that happened. Just to follow up. The other thing is, from an outsider's view on this, in the sense that I was not involved with it, in the experiences that you had and Paul shared with going to the bishop. My reaction to that, when I thought about it over the time, was they were trying to save money, because they, you know, we've talked all night about all the people that left, and the arrangement was that, as I understand it, that if now you're going from St. Joe's, which you paid, what, $250 a year, right, for your education and room and board and all that good stuff, and then you go to St. Mary's, well, then the tuition actually was $2,000 a person. And when you and the diocese paid it. However, I left. And I guess it was unclear to me exactly, but you were expected, you being the person that went to Baltimore, to pay the $2,000 back to the diocese. Doesn't mean that I don't know if you're obligated or not, which my dad did. Not that I'm not trying to quibble about it, but I was thinking about this because you had said that I thought that the issue with your class was that you took the test, and there were 2 or 3 or so people that they told they weren't going to send on, as I understand it, as you went back and forth in a discussion. And I think that personally, and it gets around to what we've discussed all night, that in a certain sense, is that the issue really was money. You know, thinking about, you know, it's like betting on a horse, if you will. You know, how many people are going to be priests? Am I going to invest in all this money? And so I just think that the fact that we had lost so many, that our class that preceded you, that they probably were beginning to think, you know, the bishop was trying to think about how all this was going to play out, you know, looking 6 years down the pike or whatever, you know, getting priests from the seminary and the like. And the only thing I can say, which was very strange to me, is that we were never really congratulated or anything. As far as I can remember, Frank can attest to this too, that, you know, after, no one ever came, you know, we graduated, right? They never said, you know, way to go or anything. Now, Dave Hooper did say, and I remember this, as Father Weisengoff saying, oh, you should have done better. I think, what? You know, this is kind of a celebration time without the prom. But I know Bill's left. But the point is that, you know, like, it was, you know, what are you, it just seems kind of an antithesis of what, you know, you think of the apostles being called by Christ to follow him, right? They just, and, you know, they question, I mean, the whole New Testament is, the Gospels are filled with, they're trying to, they being the apostles, being committed, are they not? So I thought there was kind of interesting, you know, Frank's question and the reactions that we have, and are what we discussed tonight, kind of, you know, centering on this and questions that we've struggled with since we you know, we left the seminary and then what others did. And anyways, I wanted to share that with you. Thanks for listening.
Speaking of the seminary, this week there was an interview of, I don't know if his name is LeVar Burton, the guy, the black actor who was Kunta Kinte, whatever. And
yes.
Generation.
He mentioned at age 13 entering the Catholic seminary in Sacramento, California.
Right.
I said, wow. I don't know how long he lasted there, but.
Anyway. Alex Trebek was in the seminary.
Oh, huh.
So was Al Roker.
Also, Stalin, too, was a seminary student.
He passed the test, huh?
Dick, you talked about money. You talked about money. Just think what the cash value of a priest is to a diocese. It's enormous. You know, here we were all willing to pull the wagon, right? For a lifetime. Give up marriage. And essentially be slave labor to the bishop, right? And he didn't even show up on our birthday. He didn't even send us a Christmas card.
Right.
I mean, they were stupid. Let's just face it. Let's be frank. They were ignorant. They didn't learn. Their mind was off in some other direction. They did not fulfill their responsibilities. And the seminary system crashed and burned. And I don't think it had to. I think all these guys that I'm looking at right now on this screen, or 80% of them or whatever, most of them would be wearing a Roman collar today if they'd been handled properly. But that's the way it was. And I guess the Holy Spirit has different plans for the church. And so we get to go through the ringer for whatever reason. And I guess maybe it's true. The few are called, or whatever, however it goes. Many are called, few are chosen.
Few are chosen. There you go.
Yeah.
What do you say we go to bed?
Okay. Here's my thinking about next time, which I think I don't have my calendar right in front of me. Monday, April 5th. I think we sort of agreed that 20 to 25 is about a manageable size around in there. I could say I could send the note out to the entire group. And I say the entire group is like 150, like I did last month. And say, because of our own experience, that we want to limit the actual number of participants to roughly 20 to 25. I think last time we ended up with 20 people altogether. So does that sound reasonable to do, to open the door to others, the greater body, and just see who wants to come in?
Sure.
Well, think about it this way. You have held this forum open for a period of time. You've had this large group, and your average attendance is what, 18 to 25? It may be that some people just they belong to the group and everything, but they maybe just don't want to participate in this. And you might actually have the people here who do,
And like I've done in the past, I'm recording this so I can send out the link to the recording to everybody and say, this is what we've been talking about. Next month, we're going to get together on the first Monday in April. If you think you want to be part of it, let me know in advance so I have some idea of how many people to expect. We'll probably limit it to the first 20 people who respond and say, yes, I want to be part of it, and leave it at that. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
That'd work.
I think that's reasonable, Bill. I would suggest that once you get 20 people responding, you don't say, well, we've got our 20. I would leave the communication line open to see how many actually are interested, even though you would take the first 20 or so. Back to Frank's point, this may be the normal size of it anyway.
Right, right.
Or there maybe you get 40 people who want to, and you can see if somebody else wants to lead another section.
Okay. By the way, as the administrator of this, when somebody wants to join in, I get a little message that says, so-and-so is in the waiting room, and then it's my decision whether or not to admit them. And so, for example, I thought I set it up tonight so that people would automatically admit themselves once they logged in, but it didn't work out that way. So I can kind of keep track of who wants to get in. And if it reaches the point where we are at our capacity level, I can always decline to admit them. And I could explain in the intro that that's what's going to happen, that if we reach our sort of informal list or maximum, we'll just decline to admit them and invite them to watch the video and consider getting back in the future.
Just don't tell them that you are declining to admit them because of the results of their Minnesota multi-basic personality.
Right. Hey, can I ask Jim Hammond a question?
Sure.
Even driving me crazy. Are you at James Madison?
I was at James Madison. I'm retired now.
Okay, because my niece went there, and I'm familiar with your shirt's been driving me nuts all night. Oh. There we go. I needed a J. Found it.
I directed the physician assistant program there.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Jim. Good to see you.
By the way, I remember Monsignor Moran telling me that I did okay on that test, and I don't know that he said we're going to send John to the next level, but he just said I was okay.
Teachers Pat. Hey, Bill, thanks a lot for your guidance on our group.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, great. Good talking to you guys. We'll look. I think we had a really good, interesting discussion this evening, and a little bit of the history. A lot of issues were raised. I really like the way things handled it this time. Let's do it again next month.
Okay.
Well,
good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
All righty, signing off.